whenever people give me an opportunity to talk to you guys, especially senior, I just jump at the chance. And the reason why is I was one of those kids that, just like you guys, grew up in the church. If you had talked to me my senior year and said, you know what, within 3 years you will probably have broken every rule your parents or your church ever laid out for you, I would have called them a liar. I would have been like, there's no way. There's no way I would do that, because I was the perfect Christian kid. And I got to tell you guys, within 3 years, maybe within 2, I pretty much broke every rule I'd ever been given. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but ultimately, the big reason was because the faith that I had was my parents' faith. It was not my own. I had grown up and kind of taken for granted my belief in God, my belief in the church, my understanding of what it was to be a Christian. When things got tough, it wasn't deep enough to keep me strong. And as solid as you think you are, guys, you're going to have things that are going to make you question your faith. You know, there's a big campaign right now. There's billboards going up all over the country that's got like a beautiful scene of the nativity of the wise men going to see the baby Jesus, and it's just a billboard, and it says on it, you know, it's a myth. You know, it's Celebrate Reason or something. It's by the atheist, and it is a ploy to try to continue to undermine our faith, because so many people, if you tell them you're a Christian, if you go to a state school, you are going to run into teachers. You may run into one that will look at you and call you an idiot because you're a Christian, that you have archaic beliefs. And if you can't discuss with them why you believe what you believe, whenever you have questions that enter your head, if you don't resolve those questions, eventually they eat at your heart. Because as parents, we can take and we can pound you over the head with the Bible stories and what we know you need in your head. But there's a whole lot of other stuff coming in there too, from what you watch in entertainment, if you listen to music, the things that you do that ends up affecting how you really perceive things in your heart. And that's what we want to get to. We want to get to this. If you don't answer the questions in your head about why you believe in God, why you believe in Christ, why you go to church, if you can't answer those questions, eventually they're going to erode at your heart. You see what I'm saying? That's what happened to me. Over the years, I got to tell you, I've had a lot of questions. I've had a lot of questions. And I've been looking for answers. And probably in the last 2 or 3 years, things really kind of jived together for me to where I can tell you, without a doubt, I know absolutely God is God. Christ was His Son. He came and He died. I have absolutely no doubts. I'm not one of these people that says, well, you know, sometimes I wonder. I don't wonder anymore. I have no fear. That does not mean times in my life that I'm going to hit things that are going to make me sad and going to tear me up and are going to be hard to deal with. But I got to tell you something. I have no fear. If I go out and die today, honey, I'm home. I'm going to be concerned about my family because they're going to be here and they need me because I'm mom and I'm his wife. You know, I want to be here for that, but I know what's next. I have no doubts. And the evidence is out there that you can feel the same way. And when you face things, when you're, facing your friends in college and, maybe you've been, cool your whole life and you get up there and you're not really kind of fitting in, the things that you're going to talk yourself into and you're going to rationalize, when you are rock solid in your faith, you have no fear and you're 100%, it's a whole lot easier to stand strong. As I started trying to figure all this stuff out, over the course of the years, I had to answer several key questions. First, the questions I had about the Creator, about God. I had a lot of questions too about why did God, if He is all-knowing, create us to sin and fall? Why couldn't He create us to be perfect? I had questions about Christ and why Christ had to die. Why, who was Christ? How can we be sure that He really lived? And I had questions about why the church is the church in the way it is, and why do we do what we do? Why do we have the Lord's Supper the way we have it, and all this kind of stuff. And I got to be honest, we're not going to have time to go through all that. But some of the key things that I think are going to help you to really understand what you believe are in the excerpts in this handout that I gave you. What this is as I started trying to figure it out, I put together what I call the Constitution of Faith, and that's this little thing. So I did excerpts, and that's what you've got in this, and that's what we're going to be going over. That's why it says Section 1. What I did is I broke down the Constitution of Faith into 4 articles. The first article is the creation. And then under the creation you have sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then the second article is the fall, because if it hadn't been for the fall, you wouldn't have to have faith. The third one is the Savior, and the fourth one is the church, and we have sections. But that's the reason, that explains why you're seeing, when you look at this, you'll see section 2, section 1, you'll see different little headings, and that's why, is because they're excerpts. We're going to start, number 1, with what are the odds. Have any of you guys ever studied John Clayton? Have any of y'all been around John Clayton? John Clayton, this is a book that he put out. When I discovered him, that was the first time that I really started finding peace in my faith. I got to tell you, he was the man. Over the course of the years, he's my mentor. I mean, I email him all the time, asking really crazy questions, and he tells me to go look it up, and he'll tell me where to go look it up, but he's fantastic. He has a ministry called Does God Exist? John Clayton was an atheist. He worked for Madeline O'Hare. Anybody know who Madeline O'Hare is? Madeline O'Hare was the person who got prayer kicked out of our school. She was responsible for that. He worked with her, and at one point he set out to write a book to disprove God. And in the course of trying to disprove God, this man's a scientist too. I think that needs to be known. In the course of him trying to disprove God, he proved God to himself, and then Christ to himself. And devout Christian man, just a fantastic man. And his entire life has been this ministry, Does God Exist? And you can go to doesgodexist.com, look at all kinds of wonderful information. One of the very first things I ever saw him do is the very first element in your handout here. It says, what are the odds? He said, we have evolutionists that will try to tell you that we just popped into existence. He said, for creation to have just happened, you would have to have so many variables in place that it's an absolute impossibility. He said, so just for fun, he said, I took 10. He took things like being in the right kind of galaxy, having the proper planetary mass, not being near a black hole, having the right kind of star, and other very obvious things. He took just a 10, very conservative list of the things that would have to be in place for the earth to have just popped into existence. And if you took just 10 of those things and calculated the odds, that number that you have on your handout is 150,000 million millions. That's the odds. Any scientific mind that looks at that objectively says that makes it absolutely, irrefutably impossible. You see what I'm saying? Do y'all get that? Do y'all get how big that is? There is no way that the earth was created out of an accident. There is no way the earth just happened. Also, there's some section here that talks about design. If you were to go for a walk in the woods and see a cabin there, would any part of you think that cabin, those logs that, they just fell in a storm and just kind of fell into place and built this cabin? Would any rational person think that? Of course not. You would know if you saw a cabin sitting there, somebody designed it. I have a little illustration I do with kids, and it's where I take Lincoln logs and I build just a little short cabin. And I put the Lincoln logs in the bag, and I shake it up and I dump it out. And I do it about 4 times, and I ask the kids, how many times would I have to do that for that Lincoln log cabin just to fall into place? Kindergartners will tell me, well, it's impossible. Do you understand how much better the odds are for that just to fall together than everything to fall into place in our creation? That pencil that I gave you, I keep these with me, those little tiny pencils. I have them in my purse. It's a stick of wood with lead. There's not even an eraser on that, right? And I run into a lot of agnostics and atheists, and especially when we went on the Washington trip with the kids from Good Pasture, and around the time of being at the Natural History Museum. And I told them, I said, I just pulled this out of my pencil patch. I went out in my yard and picked this out of my pencil patch. And they'll look at you and they'll be like, you're nuts. But they'll tell me there's no way possible that I picked up a piece of wood with a simple piece of lead, very basic structure. You see how basic that is? That had to be manufactured, right? There's no way I just went and picked up a pencil out of the pencil patch. But then they'll look at the intricate design of a tree and how everything fits together to make it work and pull the nutrients out of the ground and and be what it is, and the way the birds instinctively know what they're supposed to do. Everything in creation has got such an intricate design, so much more than this. You see what I'm saying? There is design all around you. Go for a walk in the woods. Look at the blade of grass. Look at the butterflies. Look at everything in creation. Look at yourself. That's